It was 30 years ago, in 1995, when Bruce Mau burst onto the global design scene with a thump via a 6-pound, 14,000-page book titled SMLXL, co-authored with the Dutch architect Rem Koolhaas. The book, or tome really, became an instant classic and is now considered among the most important texts written about the built environment. The Canadian-born 2024 SEGD Fellow has since tackled a wild assortment of projects, from carpets to cities, as he puts it. To one end of that spectrum, Bruce Mau, for a self-described graphic designer, has been asked to do some audacious things. Say, rename a country, for example, or maybe rethink the holy city of Mecca. Through his lectures, his practice, his writing, and not to mention his unrelenting mirth and optimism, Bruce Mau is a guide and mentor to many. These days, he teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and Arizona State University, inspiring a new generation of designers to think expansively about the work at hand, especially amid these precarious times. Everything is experience design, Bruce says. How we live is the great question of the millennium. And here is the formidable Bruce Mau.
I'm a designer. By designer, I mean really in the broadest sense. We've designed everything from carpets to cities. I started as a graphic designer, and people just asked me to do weirder and weirder things. And, we've really followed the evolution of design from, what it looks like to, how do we live? How do we imagine our way of life? The way that we begin is really by listening. So we really try to understand, what are people actually trying to accomplish? Almost all of our clients express the problem as a solution. I need a new logo. So our work is really to help them find the problem and express it. We have a method of massive change. It's a method of applying design to problems, and those problems are agnostic. In other words, you put any problem in front of that method, and it will help you through that problem, and it will help you solve that problem. I find if I really focus on the work, all the other issues go away, and the work really drives the process. It drives the creativity, it drives the solution. It's interesting because that's the advice that I got from Frank Gehry, from working with Frank, because I got, quite a lot of recognition very young. And Frank kind of took me aside. I was working very closely with him. He's a real mentor. He said, focus on the work and don't get drawn away by all the other things, because the work doesn't care about you. It doesn't care if you're famous. It doesn't care if you're a hot designer. Focus on the work, and all the other things will line up behind it. I discovered SEGD driven by fear, because when Frank was working on the Walt Disney Concert Hall, he asked me to do all the identity and graphics and all the signage for the building. And I said, Frank, I haven't designed a washroom sign. I have no idea how to do that. So I discovered this organization. They had all kinds of information on how to do that, which I had no experience. And I found people who knew how to do it and worked with them. They were great. They helped me a lot. And we were able to do a wonderful job, But that really was my introduction to the SEGD. And it was one of the few organizations I've ever encountered that actually provided a real utility to the designers it was serving. The question we asked when we did Massive Change was, now that we can do anything, what will we do? It was then a rhetorical question. It's becoming a real question. And in 50 years, it will be, in some ways, the only question.